VA's Office of Connected Care is working to bridge the digital divide so that all veterans can access VA care no matter where they are. VA understands that not all veterans have access to the internet or to internet-connected devices. The gap between those who do and those who do not is known as the digital divide. VA's Digital Divide Consult connects these veterans with programs and resources that provide the internet service or technology needed for VA telehealth visits. A veteran's care team can refer the veteran to a social worker who will assist them. To get started, visit the Bridging the Digital Divide webpage at telehealth.va.gov/digital-divide.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I'm the host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubuzoo network. You can find out more on hubuzoo.com. I want to thank my supporters and sponsors. My supporters, Semper Savage Salad Dressing, Bottom Gun Coffee, and Cason Shaving Company. And my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate and Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing. So it's just me tonight. This is Thursday, September 8th. I forgot to mute my phone. I'll do that right now. And September 11th is, 3 days later on a Sunday. It's been 21 years. And a lot's changed and a lot hasn't changed. I think about where I was before this happened. I was going about my, work day, not really, aware of anything, and no big deal. Just go to work. And I remember where I was when the news started hitting. I remember how I felt. I remember that the main thing was I knew I didn't have any family down in New York City in that area at the time, so the next step, the next thing to do was to be very concerned about my colleagues. I'd been down to the New York location several times in that area on Wall Street, and I'm like, oh my God, there's people I talk to, sometimes weekly, monthly, or daily at any given time, and are they okay? And I don't know if I've ever really, done anything substantial with Oscar Mike Radio in 9/11. I don't have a lot to say. I still don't know all the details behind it. I just know that we've changed. And this really came into focus for me with two things. I've been watching these documentaries on Netflix about World War II, and it's kind of interesting. There's perspective from all the countries involved, Russia, Japan, Germany, England, and of course the United States. And one thing that's becoming clear to me is choices and decisions that are made have long-term effects on a city, a country, a nation, and the world. What if Eisenhower had not stopped to liberate Paris and pushed on to Berlin? What would have happened then? Would the Russians have had a toehold in Germany and began the Iron Curtain? Several things. What if the United States had entered the war earlier? What would have happened? Should we have entered the war at all, until Pearl Harbor hit? I mean, things like Lend-Lease and all these things had long-term effects, not only in the particular conflict, but also what we do now. And so, reflecting back on 9/11, it's been 21 years, and after 9/11 happened, everybody in this country pulled together. Like, we put aside, differences of opinion, demographic differences, age differences, all that was put aside, and it was about getting us back on our feet. And now it seems like we just like to fight over stupid stuff that in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter. I mean, you literally have people in other parts of the world willing to kill somebody over a gallon of clean water, and we are fighting over, what pronouns to use in a sentence. It's just, I'm trying not to be cynical, but it's kind of like, what are we doing here? It seems like in some ways that we are closer to where Rome was before it burned than where we were after 9/11, when we were unified and we wanted to come together as a country and as a people and remind the world who America is. And I'm not saying that's not there. I'm not saying there's people that don't care about America. There are. I talk with them. I have them on this show. I support them. They support me. But it just seems like we're becoming more and more fractured, more and more separated, with no real idea if we're ever going to be able to put aside our differences or discuss our differences and be able to be in sync, be a bond, be a nation. And I'm not saying we have to be nationalist. I'm not saying that at all. But we don't get along together as Americans anymore. I mean, if do you get vaccinated or unvaxxed? I mean, don't get me on that thing. Don't make me go down that road. But that's a perfect example. It's this divide and conquer thing, and this us versus them mentality that I don't remember so much before 9/11, and it certainly wasn't that way after 9/11. And to me, I wonder why Osama bin Laden chose then to attack us, because, and I'm not saying this as I want this to happen, but you would almost think that it would be better to attack us now while we're distracted and not unified and not able to form a response than to have attacked us 20 years ago. I don't know if we're capable of mounting the kind of response needed now. Whether that's 8 years ago, 4 years ago, or now, I don't know. I don't know how that will happen. And another thing that kind of brings this up is I'm getting ready to read Colonel Scheller's book. He was the Marine Corps lieutenant colonel who got booted out for things he said about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I'm very interested to read that book, because one of the other things that comes clear in these documentaries is the attitude and temperament and personality of the commanding general or the senior officers in military leadership is as much a reason that things work and fail as, do we have enough bullets to put in these guns? And so I don't mean to ramble, I don't mean to go on and on, but I want us to think about this for a second. Because a lot of things that are happening now with the Veterans Administration, wounded vets from, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, all that stuff took place because of 9/11. And these people's lives and the actions we took are starting to have ripple effects down to service members' children, veterans' children who are now trying to figure it out. 20-year-old, service members back in 2001 who served, 2000, excuse me, who served, and then, they've had kids now, and those kids joined the military and finished up the war. I mean, it's kind of surreal to think about it. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. This is not about me trying to solve a problem or give advice or give counsel, because the honest truth is, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know a lot of how this happened. I know there were security breakdowns. I know there were communication breakdowns. I know that, how we treated, certain entities when they came in this country led to all this. But there's a lot I don't know. I do know that things have changed afterwards. I'm not sure that the powers of the NSA and that were granted to them by the Patriot Act is a good thing for Americans. We have given up a lot of our freedom in the name of security, and that's never a good way to be. It never is. Especially with the advent of cell phones that can pinpoint within 9 feet of where you are on the planet as soon as it gets a cell connection. They don't need to bug our houses anymore. They have these things, and I use them. I do, but the reality is, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, CenturyLink will all give the information due to the Patriot Act. So are we really better off? Are we really more secure? And I'm thinking about that because I've asked myself, okay, you can't go on a plane anymore without several layers of defense and depth security, which is great, but how would you attack the United States? One of the things that the documentaries talked about is the fact that we have a lot of water between us and other parts of the world, makes it harder to sustain an attack here. And I really think our enemies are looking at ways to cripple us without firing a shot. Cyber attacks, going through the southern border, all that stuff is a way to get the kind of response they want and weaken us without having to build 30 aircraft carriers and park them off the LA coast and start doing sorties. Where there's a will, there's a way, is what I'm trying to say, and I'm wondering what our enemies are doing and the people that want to hurt us are doing to try to attack us again. Maybe they're doing nothing. Maybe they're looking at this and saying, wow, it only took 20 years for most Americans to be at odds with their fellow American. Maybe that's all it took. I don't know. And as this is kind of a different kind of show, and I'm really just vocalizing some thoughts I had. I don't know what the answer is. What I am concerned about is what kind of world that my generation will leave behind for my children and grandchildren and their children. How do we do that? How do we get back to a point where, okay, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, you didn't serve, I served, you didn't serve in the Marine Corps, I did, and that's all okay. At the end of the day, we still love our country, we love being able to live here, and we want to make it a better place. How do we get back to that point? I don't think we do that by separating us and making each other enemies. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how you get back to that point. But I remember that, we were unified, the whole country, around what happened at 9/11. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that we had been hurt and that we were going to respond and we were going to get New York back to where it was. There was no doubt. There's countless stories about that. And so, as you go into this weekend and it's on a Sunday, I would just say that I can't ever forget. Because again, I remember exactly where I was when the news came in. I remember the co-workers around me. I remember which room I was in. I remember the entire floor started making calls to New York to figure out what was going on. And then the last thing that I can't forget was we looked out the window and there were thousands of people in the streets of Boston heading to leave the city because of the very real fear that, we might be next. So I don't want you to forget. I don't want you to forget. I don't want you to never let this leave your mind. But my goal is for the next year is to try to find people that I may or may not necessarily agree with or believe the same as, and have a conversation with them about why they believe the way they do, and maybe find some common ground. And I say this not only as an American, but also, as a veteran. There's a lot of people who vote in our country to elect representation at the Senate and House level, House and Senate level, to vote on things for veterans. If they're not aware of some of the things that are going on, they can't direct their representation to advocate for us. So I think it's to our benefit to take the time and, not be in their face, but just say, hey, I'm a veteran. This is why I serve. This is what I'm doing now. This is why this is important to us as service members. I certainly would appreciate you getting with your senator, getting with your, House representative, and supporting us. So it's 9/11. It's September 8th. It's not 9/11 yet. I hope that if you were impacted by that day, that you have some comfort and peace, and that people don't forget, and I never will. That's pretty much it for this week. It's one of those real, personal, emotional topics for me to discuss. I didn't lose any close friends or coworkers in 9/11, but I certainly have met some people in the town I live in, and some coworkers who did, and some people that served, whether they were law enforcement, National Guard members who carry that with them. And for those that did answer the call on that day, whether you were a first responder, law enforcement, medical, or just a concerned citizen, you have my heartfelt gratitude. So that's pretty much it. I really don't want to promote anything this week or give notice to anything else besides the topic, and that is 9/11. Please don't forget. And thank you.